A call button light blinks in a darkened cabin. A small, thirsty girl is ignored. A stressed flight attendant makes a choice fueled by a bias she won't admit. She doesn't know about the camera, small and steady, recording her every dismissive sigh. She doesn't know the woman on her laptop in seat 22B is one of the most respected journalists in the country. The attendant thinks she's just dealing with another difficult passenger. She's about to find out she's not just in an argument. She's the breaking story. And this story, this one ends in a free fall. The hum of the Rolls-Royce engines on the Global Air Boeing 787 was a familiar lullaby to Dr. Lena Brooks. It was the white noise of her life, a constant, vibrating reminder of deadlines, datelines, and the relentless pull of the 24-hour news cycle. She adjusted the blue light-blocking glasses on her face, her laptop already balanced on the tray table, a half-finished brief glowing on the screen. Flight 1422, Atlanta to London, was a 7-hour and 40-minute pocket of time she could use to get ahead before the London bureau swallowed her whole. Beside her in the window seat, 22A, her daughter Maya was having a different experience. At 11 years old, Maya Brooks saw the world not as a series of deadlines, but as a collection of stories waiting to be captured. And she was ready to capture them. Clutched in her hands was her new gimbal camera, a smooth black device her mother had gotten her for her birthday. It was part of a deal. Maya had been selected for a prestigious CNN Youth Correspondents summer program, a pilot initiative to foster new talent. This trip was her first assignment, a day in the life of a transatlantic traveler. Maya meticulously filmed the ripple of the winglet against the deep blue of the stratosphere, the tiny ice crystals forming on the outer pane, and the way the diminishing light cast long shadows across the premium economy cabin. She wasn't just a kid with a toy, she was a documentarian. In the forward galley, senior flight attendant Sandra Wilkinson was not in the mood for documentarians. She was in the mood for retirement, though that was still a decade away. With 22 years of service, Sandra had seen it all. She'd seen the golden age of travel curdle into the cattle car era. She prided herself on her professionalism, a brittle armor she wore against the declining manners of the flying public. Her blonde hair was pulled into a chignon, so tight it felt like it was lifting her eyebrows. A faint, nagging pain throbbed in her lower back, a souvenir from a turbulent landing over Chicago 2 years ago. "Cabin crew prepare for in-flight service," the purser Mark announced over the internal line. Sandra rolled her shoulders and forced the service smile onto her face. It was a mask she had perfected. It was bright, non-specific, and didn't quite reach her eyes. She began her systematic scan of the cabin she was responsible for. Rows 18 through 28. Premium economy. The aspirational section. People who paid a little more to feel a little better, which in Sandra's experience often made them the most demanding. Her eyes swept over the passengers. 18C, Mr. Henderson, a regular. Platinum status, already had his noise-cancelling headphones on. He was easy. Always a whiskey and ginger ale and a "thank you, dear." 19G, a young couple, probably honeymooners, already cuddling under a blanket. Annoying but self-contained. Then her eyes landed on 22A and 22B. A black woman tapping furiously on a laptop. An expensive one, Sandra noted with a flicker of something. Judgment, surprise. She quickly suppressed it. The woman was dressed professionally in a sharp blazer. Beside her, the little girl with the camera. The girl was filming the cabin, panning slowly. Sandra felt an immediate, prickling irritation. Everyone was a vlogger now. Everyone thought their mundane little trip was worthy of a movie. It was narcissistic. More than that, it was a safety issue. Probably. She'd have to look up the specific regulation again, but she was sure filming the crew without permission was frowned upon. She made a mental note. A negative mental note. "All right, Chloe," she said to the younger flight attendant working with her. "Let's get the carts moving. This lot looks thirsty." Chloe, bubbly and eager to please, nodded. "You start from 18. I'll start from 28. And we'll meet in the middle." "No," Sandra said curtly. "We work together, front to back. It's more organized. It's the global airway." Chloe, who knew this was slower, but didn't dare argue with Sandra's seniority, just nodded again. "Right. Front to back it is." Sandra took the front of the heavy cart. She straightened her uniform tunic, the smile locking back into place. The light in the cabin was now a simulated soothing purple meant to encourage rest. The seatbelt sign had been off for an hour. They were stable over the Atlantic. Maya, meanwhile, had finished her exterior shots. She turned the gimbal toward herself. "Okay," she whispered to the lens. "The flight attendants are getting the drinks. This is the first interaction point for passengers. Mom says this is where you can tell the most about an airline service culture." She turned the camera, balancing it perfectly on her tray table so it captured a wide shot of the aisle and the row in front of her. She wasn't trying to be sneaky. She was just filming her scene. The cart began its slow, heavy roll. The clinking of miniature bottles, the hiss of a soda can. "Sir." Sandra's voice, saccharine and polite, drifted to Maya's row. "Something to drink?" "A snack. Whiskey, ginger ale, light ice stir." Mr. Henderson in 18C replied, pulling down his headphones. "Of course, Mr. Henderson. Coming right up." Sandra's hands were a blur of efficiency. She poured the drink, offered him the whole can of ginger ale, and added a little bag of pretzels. "Anything else I can get for you?" "That's perfect, thank you." The cart rolled. 19G. The honeymooners got champagne, which Sandra provided with a conspiratorial, on-the-house congratulations. Row 20 got complicated orders for tomato juice and beer, which Sandra handled with practiced, if slightly strained, patience. Row 21. A family with 2 small children. Sandra was a fortress of smiles. "And for you little ones, we have apple juice or orange juice and a special pilot's wings pin." Then the cart stopped at row 22. Lena was still working her fingers, flying. Maya, feeling a tickle in her throat from the dry, recycled air, sat up straight. This was her moment. The cart was right there. Sandra looked at Lena, who was oblivious in her work bubble, and then her gaze flicked to Maya. The camera was still on the tray table, its tiny red record light, a small, unwelcoming beacon. Sandra's smile tightened. She said nothing. Maya, coached in manners, waited to be addressed. When she wasn't, she spoke up. Her voice was clear and polite. "Excuse me," Maya said. Sandra turned her head, not her body, toward the girl. "Yes." "May I please have a bottle of water?" Sandra's eyes flicked from Maya to the camera, then back to Maya. She didn't move toward the water bottles. "We have complimentary soft drinks, juice," she began, as if reading a script. "Just water, please. A bottle if I can," Maya repeated. Sandra inhaled slowly through her nose. "I'll be with you in a moment." She then turned her entire body to the man in 22C, a white man in a university sweatshirt. "And for you, sir, something to drink." The man ordered a Coke. Sandra served him with a smile, handed him the can, and then with a great theatrical push moved the cart to row 23. Maya stared. Lena, sensing the pause in the rhythm of service, finally looked up from her laptop. "Did you get your water, sweetie?" "No." Maya said, her voice small. She just skipped me." Lena frowned. She looked at the cart now at the next row. "Maybe she's coming back." "She served the man next to me." Maya whispered, her eyes on the camera, which was still rolling. "Okay," Lena said, her journalistic instincts sensing a data point. "Let's see what happens. Press your call button." Maya looked up, her eyes wide. "But she's right there." "Press the button, Maya. Let's run the experiment." Hesitantly, Maya reached up and pressed the overhead button. A moment later, a quiet ding sounded in the cabin, and the blue light above 22A illuminated. Sandra at row 23 heard it. She stopped her paw. She looked up, saw the light, and her face, which was already strained, hardened into a mask of pure annoyance. She finished serving row 23 deliberately slowly, and then, instead of moving to row 24, she walked back, her shoes clicking on the floor. She did not go to 22A. She stood in the aisle, arms crossed. "Yes," she snapped. Maya shrank back. Lena put her hand on her daughter's arm. "My daughter would like a bottle of water," Lena said, her voice even and professional. Sandra looked at Lena as if seeing her for the first time. Her eyes scanned the blazer, the laptop, the determined set of her jaw. She saw a threat. "The call button," Sandra said, her voice low and sharp, "is for emergencies only, ma'am, not for a drink service that is already in progress. I will get to your row when I get to it." "You were at our row," Lena countered, her voice remaining level. "You served the man next to us. You skipped my daughter." "I am working my way through the cabin," Sandra hissed, aware of the nearby passengers turning to look. "You will have to be patient." "Patient?" She asked you politely. You ignored her. "I am asking you politely. Get my daughter a bottle of water." A tense electric silence stretched between the two women. Sandra felt the hot flush of indignation rise in her chest. How dare she? This woman with her aggressive tone, her entitled child, her... "Ma'am, if you continue to speak to me in this hostile manner, I will have to report you to the captain." "Hostile?" Lena's eyebrows shot up. "That's a very interesting choice of word." "Lower your voice," Sandra commanded. "I am not raising my voice. I am making a simple request that you have refused for the third time." Sandra looked at Maya. She looked at the camera, which was still aimed at the aisle. A new, different kind of anger sparked in her. "And you," she spat at Maya. "Turn that thing off. It is against federal aviation regulations to film crew members." This was strictly speaking not true, but it was the threat she always used. Before Lena could respond, Sandra turned on her heel and marched back to her cart, leaving the blue call light illuminated and Maya without her water. "Wow," Lena said, leaning back in her seat. She looked at her daughter. "Keep filming Maya. This is definitely a story." An hour is a long time on the ground. At 35,000 feet in a pressurized, climate-controlled tube, it can be an eternity, especially when you are thirsty. After the confrontation, a heavy, uncomfortable silence had settled over row 22. The passengers in the surrounding rows, who had been rapt witnesses to the spat, quickly busied themselves with their movies, their books, their own thoughts. No one wanted to be drawn into the gravitational pull of that much tension. The drink cart continued its slow procession. Sandra, her back ramrod straight, Her smile, now a grotesque, fixed grimace, finished the service. She pointedly did not look at row 22 as she and Chloe pushed the cart back to the forward galley. The blue call light above 22A stayed lit for another 10 minutes, a lonely beacon of a request unfulfilled, before it was remotely and anonymously cleared from the galley's main panel. Maya's throat felt scratchy. The pretzels she'd eaten from her own snack bag now seemed like a tactical error. "Mom, I'm really thirsty," she whispered. Lena's face was a study in controlled anger. She was a mother, first a journalist, second, and right now the mother was furious. But the journalist knew that reacting with matching fury was a losing game. The optics, as they said in her business, would be terrible. She would be labeled the angry black woman, a stereotype she had fought her entire career. Sandra, with her sharp, hostile comment, had already tried to shove her into that box. "I know, baby," Lena said, her voice soothing. She closed her laptop. The work could wait. "We're going to handle this, but we're going to do it the right way." "What's the right way?" "We give her one more chance to fix it. Then we escalate." Lena waited another 15 minutes. The cabin lights were dimmed further, signaling the rest portion of the flight. Flight attendants were making their final pass to collect any lingering trash from the service. It wasn't Sandra. It was Chloe, the younger attendant. She moved quickly, her eyes darting around, clearly uncomfortable. As she approached row 22, she seemed to brace herself. "Trash, ma'am?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, her hand out for Lena's empty pretzel bag. "Yes, thank you," Lena said, handing her the bag. She spoke clearly, but without aggression. "My daughter has been waiting for over an hour and a half for a bottle of water. Could you please get her one?" Chloe froze. She looked like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming 787. She looked over her shoulder toward the forward galley, as if expecting Sandra to materialize. I think the service is—" "We're tidying up now," Chloe stammered. "I understand, but she's just a child and she's thirsty. You have water bottles in that galley, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am, but Sandra is—" Is Sandra your superior?" Lena asked. "She's the senior on this service," Chloe admitted, her voice dropping. "And did she tell you not to serve us?" No, not exactly. She just said you were disruptive." Lena nodded, a cold, hard understanding setting in. "I see. So are you going to get my daughter water, or is your colleague's personal issue with me going to prevent you from doing your job?" The bluntness of the question, paired with Lena's calm demeanor, seemed to break through Chloe's panic. The younger woman looked at Maya. Maya, who looked small and tired in the big seat, was watching the interaction with wide, intelligent eyes. Just a minute," Chloe said. She dumped the trash bag in the cart and scurried to the galley. Lena and Maya waited. They heard a muffled but sharp exchange. The words were indistinct, but the tone was not. A low, angry hiss from one voice, Sandra's, and a higher, placating tone from the other, Chloe's. A minute later, Chloe reappeared. She was walking quickly, her head down. She practically threw 2 bottles of water onto Maya's tray table. "Here," she muttered, not making eye contact. "Thank you," Lena said, but Chloe was already halfway down the aisle, disappearing into the aft galley. "Well," Lena said, twisting the cap off a bottle and handing it to Maya. "That was, something." Maya drank nearly half the bottle in one long, grateful pull. She was scared of that other lady. "Yes," Lena said, her eyes dark. "She was. And that's a problem too." Maya put the bottle down and picked up her camera. The battery was still good. She turned it back on. "What are you doing now?" Lena asked. "I'm going to the bathroom," Maya said, "but I'm going to walk to the back of the plane, the long way. I want to see what's in the galley, for my documentary." Lena almost said no. It was risky. But then she looked at her daughter's determined face. This was the instinct she'd been trying to foster in her. Curiosity, resilience, the courage to go and see. "Okay," Lena said. "Keep the camera low. Don't be obvious. Just be an observer. And come right back." "Yes, Mum." Maya slipped out of her seat. She held the gimbal camera steady at her waist, the lens pointing forward, capturing the world from an 11-year-old's perspective. She padded down the darkened aisle, past the sleeping forms of other passengers. She reached the aft galley. Chloe was there, wiping down a counter, her back to the aisle. She was sniffling. "Are you okay?" Maya asked. Chloe spun around, startled, and her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh, you scared me." "I'm sorry. I just wanted to say thank you for the water," Maya said. Chloe's face softened. "Oh, you're welcome, sweetie. I'm sorry about before." "Is the other lady your boss?" Maya asked the camera, quietly taking it all in. Chloe shook her head. "Not my boss, just senior. She's been flying a long time. She's set in her ways." "She was mean," Maya said with the simple, devastating clarity of a child. Chloe didn't know how to respond to that. She just nodded, her eyes filling with tears again. "It's a really stressful job. People are hard." "But we weren't hard," Maya said. "I just asked for water." "I know," Chloe whispered. "I know. You should probably get back to your seat." "Sandra, she mostly stays in the forward galley." It was a warning and a confirmation. Maya nodded. "Okay. Thank you again." She walked back to her seat, her mind whirring. She had the initial incident, she had the hostile confrontation, and now she had the aftermath, a younger crew member bullied into submission, apologizing in secret. She sat down next to her mother. "Mum," she said, showing her the footage. "I think I have the whole story." Lena watched the short clip of the trembling, apologetic Chloe. Her blood ran cold. This wasn't just a case of one rude flight attendant. This was a toxic work environment, and the passengers were the collateral damage. "You do, Maya," Lena said, her voice grim. "You absolutely do. But I don't think it's finished. There's one more piece." "What?" "The escalation. We're not staying here. I'm not sitting in the middle of a cabin where I've been labeled hostile and my daughter has been denied basic service. Not for 5 more hours." Lena unbuckled her seatbelt. "Wait here. Keep your camera on, but keep it in your lap." "Mum, where are you going?" "I'm going to find the purser. Mr. Mark, I'm going to the forward galley." "But she's there." "I know," Lena said, standing up. "That's half the point." Lena Brooks. A woman who had interviewed warlords and stared down corrupt politicians, took a deep breath and began the long walk to the front of the plane. The forward galley of a 787 is a marvel of compressed efficiency. It's all brushed aluminum, hidden latches, and industrial-grade coffee makers. During the cruise phase of a long-haul flight, it serves as the crew's sanctuary, their break room, and their command center. It is, by unwritten rule, their space. When Lena Brooks pushed through the curtain, She stepped into a scene of domestic non-tranquility. Sandra Wilkinson was leaning against a counter, her arms crossed holding court. Mark the purser was sitting on a low-slung jump seat, rubbing his temples, a half-eaten crew meal cooling on the tray beside him. "And I'm telling you, Mark, the entitlement is off the charts," Sandra was saying, her voice a low, venomous buzz. She was aggressive, immediately. The daughter with the camera, a total setup. They're probably one of those sue the airline for a free ticket types. You can spot them a mile away. Sandra. Mark sighed. It was a bottle of water. We're G-class service. Water is the minimum. It's not about the water, Mark. It's about the respect. It's about the hostile tone she took with me. In front of other passengers, undermining my authority. "Excuse me," Lena said, her voice calm and clear, sliced through the galley chatter like a scalpel. Both Mark and Sandra froze. Sandra's head snapped up, and her face, which had been pinched in complaint, contorted into a mask of disbelief and rage. "You cannot be in here!" Sandra shrieked, her voice cracking. "This is a restricted area. Get out!" "I'm not going anywhere," Lena said, her voice never rising, which only seemed to enrage Sandra further. "I'm here to speak to the purser." Mark leaped to his feet. "Ma'am, Mrs. Brooks, you really can't be in the galley. It's a safety issue. Please let me come to your seat." "No," Lena said, holding her ground. She had planted herself just inside the curtain, creating a bottleneck. "I am not returning to a seat where my daughter and I were denied a basic service, and I was subsequently labeled a threat. I am not spending one more minute in Ms. Wilkinson's service area." The use of her name, the formal complaint, the absolute calm, it was a devastating combination. "See," Sandra shouted, pointing a long, manicured finger at Lena. "See what I mean? Aggressive, hostile. I'm telling you, Mark, she's unstable. She's probably filming this right now." "Ms. Wilkinson, enough." Mark snapped his patience, finally breaking. He turned to Lena, his face a map of professional distress. "Dr. Brooks, I apologize. I was not aware of the full severity of the situation." "The severity," Lena said, "is that your senior attendant, Ms. Wilkinson here, refused service to my 11-year-old daughter. She then ignored a call button. When I asked, she accused me of having a hostile tone, a racially coded term we can unpack later, and then stormed off. A junior attendant had to sneak water to us, and she was terrified of her." Lena pointed at Sandra. "That is the situation." Mark looked at Sandra. Her face was white, her lipstick a garish red slash. She was trembling with a rage that had no outlet. "Sandra," Mark said, his voice dangerously quiet, "did you refuse service to a child?" No, I was busy." "The cart?" "She was filming. It's against policy. She was rude." Sandra's defense was a panicked, crumbling wall. "She asked for water," Lena stated. "My daughter's camera, by the way, is registered with the CNN Youth Correspondence program. That footage is the property of Cable News Network. And you are correct, she was filming. She filmed the entire hour-and-a-half long process." This was the moment. The grenade. Mark's blood ran cold. CNN. He had seen the name Dr. L. Brooks on the passenger manifest, but it hadn't clicked. He had assumed she was a different kind of doctor. A professor, maybe. Sandra, however, didn't seem to process the CNN part. She was stuck on the filming part. "I knew it," she crowed, a note of triumph in her voice. "It is a setup. They're professional complainers. They're trying to get me fired. You people are all the same. It was the you people that did it. Mark's head snapped around. Sandra, what did you just say? Lena didn't flinch. She just raised an eyebrow. Go on, Miss Wilkinson. What people are we? Sandra finally heard herself. The blood drained from her face, replaced by a sickly pale green. She had said the quiet part out loud, in front of her boss, in front of the passenger. I meant people who film, people who are difficult, she stammered, but the damage was absolute. Right, Lena said, her voice dripping with ice. Now, Mr. Mark, what are we going to do about this? Mark was in full-blown crisis mode. This was no longer a customer service complaint. This was a 5-alarm corporate fire. This was a viral video. This was a lawsuit. This was his job on the line. Ms. Wilkinson, he said, and his voice was no longer the voice of a colleague. It was the voice of a superior. Go to the aft galley. Now. Assist Chloe. Do not speak to another passenger. Do not take another drink order. Do not look at another passenger. You will sort recycling. Am I clear? Sandra's mouth opened and closed. She looked at Lena, her eyes burning with a hatred so pure it was almost visible. She had lost. Utterly. Am I clear? Mark repeated. Yes, Mark, Sandra whispered, her professional mask shattering into 1,000 pieces. She grabbed her cardigan and, in a move that was a complete breach of protocol, pushed past Lena, shoving the curtain aside, and disappeared into the main cabin. The galley was suddenly profoundly quiet. There was only the hum of the engines and the frantic beating of Mark's heart. Dr. Brooks, he began. I don't know what to say. I am appalled. I am mortified. That behavior it's unspeakable. It is not Global Air. It just was, though, Lena said, her arms crossed. For the last 2 hours, it was the very definition of Global Air. So let's try again. What are we going to do about this? Right. Yes, first, you and your daughter. We have 2 seats, 2 pods available in our Polaris business class cabin. I want you to have them. On me. On the airline. It's the least. It's the absolute minimum I can do. And my daughter's camera with the footage, Lena asked. Dr. Brooks, please, whatever you need. We're not looking for a handout, Mark, Lena said, cutting him off. I'm not here to negotiate. I'm telling you what's going to happen. You're going to move us to business class. You're going to file a formal written report, and you're going to give me a copy of your name and employee number. I will be filing a complaint, and my network will be reviewing the footage. How this plays out for Global Air depends entirely on what happens in the next 5 minutes and when we land. Mark was nodding his head, bobbing up and down. Yes, of course. Anything. Let me get your new boarding passes. I'll get you a glass of champagne, water, anything. Just get us moved, Lena said. And I want a formal written apology from Ms. Wilkinson before we land. I can't force her to. Then you can explain to the Global Air CEO why CNN is running a story about how their senior staff is not only biased, but is protected by their purses. Mark's face went pale. I'll see what I can do. Please, right this way. Let me help you with your bags. As Lena walked back to row 22, she felt no triumph, just a cold, heavy exhaustion. Maya looked up, her camera still in her lap. What happened? We're moving, Lena said, pulling her carry-on from the overhead bin. Where? To the front of the plane, baby. To the very front. The walk from row 22 to row 4 in the Polaris business class cabin was a walk between two worlds. They left the tight 242 configuration of premium economy with its shared armrests and quest for legroom, and entered a serene, hushed sanctuary. The pods were angled away from the aisle, offering privacy. Each had its own lie-flat bed, oversized screen, and a plush duvet sealed in plastic. Another flight attendant, a kind-faced woman named Sarah, with 25 years of service on her pin, greeted them. Mark had clearly pre-briefed her. "Dr. Brooks, Miss Meyer, welcome. I'm Sarah. We have 4D and 4G ready for you. Please let me get you settled." Her voice was a warm, professional balm. "Thank you." Lena said, the tension easing from her shoulders, just a fraction. "Can I get you something to drink? A glass of real champagne? Orange juice or—" Sarah said with a pointed, knowing look. "I have some lovely large bottles of sparkling mineral water." Maya, now settled in her pod and exploring the amenity kit, giggled. "Water sounds great, thank you. And for you, Dr. Brooks. The water is fine, thank you, Sarah." As Sarah glided away, Mark reappeared at Lena's elbow. He was holding a printed piece of paper from the onboard printer. "Dr. Brooks, my name is Mark Jenkins. This is my employee number, my Gmail, and the direct line to the in-flight services director for the London-Atlanta hub. I have filed my initial report." "And Ms. Wilkinson?" Mark grimaced. "She is indisposed. In the aft galley. I have not been able to secure the apology." "You mean she refused?" "She is not cooperating." Mark admitted, his voice low. "Dr. Brooks, when we land there, will be a ground supervisor meeting the flight. Mr. Davies. He's the station manager at Heathrow. I've sent him the full report. They will be handling this. Formally. I promise you." "Thank you, Mark. You've done the right thing given the circumstances," Lena said. It was a partial absolution, and he took it gratefully. "Please," he said, "if you need anything, you press this call button." He pointed to the one in her pod. "It comes directly to Sarah. She will get you water." He left, and for the first time in 3 hours, Lena and Maya were alone. "Well," Maya said, adjusting the multiple pillows behind her, "this is better." "It is," Lena said, "but don't let the new seat fool you. The problem is still on the plane." "Sandra," Maya said. "Sandra," Lena agreed. The problem at that moment was in the tiny aft galley locked in a bathroom, and she was crying. But they were not tears of remorse. They were tears of white-hot, self-pitying rage. How could this happen? Sandra thought, staring at her reflection in the steel mirror. 22 years. 22 years of perfect service, of giving my life to this company. And for what? To be humiliated. By that woman and her brat. She had been summarily dismissed, sent to the back of the plane like a naughty child. Chloe, the junior attendant, was now pointedly ignoring her, taking on the service duties with a newfound grim determination. Sandra had been relegated to sorting tiny aluminum cans from plastic cups. It was a humiliation she could barely comprehend. She set me up. The thought was a comfort, a lifeline. It was a setup. The camera, the aggressive questions. She's one of those race baiters, looking for a handout, looking to make a good white person look bad. She replayed the scene in her mind. The girl's polite request, Sandra's dismissal, the call button, the confrontation. I did nothing wrong, she told herself. The button is for emergencies. The girl was filming. The mother was hostile. And the "you people" comment. A flicker of genuine fear finally pierced her anger. That was bad. She knew it was bad. It had just slipped out. The stress, the aggression from the passenger. She was the real victim here. She came out of the bathroom. Chloe looked up, startled. Mark radioed back. Chloe said, her voice flat. Mr. Davies, the station manager, is meeting the plane. We're all to remain on board until the last passenger is off. This was not standard procedure. Standard was a quick tidy and a race to the crew bus. For everyone? Sandra asked, her voice small. For everyone, Chloe said, and turned back to her inventory list, making it clear whose fault it was. Sandra sank onto the galley jump seat, the fight draining out of her. CNN. The acronym finally landed in her brain with the full, devastating weight of its 3 letters. It wasn't just a vlog. It wasn't some influencer trying to get a free meal. It was cable news network. Oh God. She wasn't just in trouble with the airline. She was in trouble with the world. That woman. Dr. Lena Brooks. Sandra fumbled for the crew tablet. She typed the name into the onboard Wi-Fi's search engine. The page took a moment to load in the thin air. And then her world collapsed. The first hit Dr. Lena Brooks, senior national correspondent for CNN. The second, a link to her Emmy-winning documentary, The Other Side of the Street. The third, a Time magazine cover, The Truth Tellers, with Lena's face strong and determined, staring back at her. Sandra's hands began to shake. This wasn't a race baiter. This wasn't a professional complainer. This was one of the most respected journalists in America, and Sandra Wilkinson had refused to give her daughter a bottle of water. She thought of the little girl's camera, the gimbal, the steady, unwavering red light. It wasn't a toy. It was a weapon, and it had been pointed at her for the entire encounter. Hostile. You people, it is against federal aviation regulations to film me. Every word she had said was a nail in her own coffin. Chloe, she whispered, her voice a dry rasp. Chloe looked up, her expression impatient. What? I need to apologize. To Dr. Brooks. I need to go up there. Chloe's eyes went wide. Are you crazy? Mark said you are to stay here. You are not to go near that passenger. Do you want to get arrested when we land? But I have to fix this, Sandra said, a new desperate panic rising in her. She thinks I'm not. I'm not a racist. I was just stressed. It's the back pain. I need to explain. There is no explaining this, Sandra, Chloe said, and for the first time her voice had steel in it. You did what you did. You said what you said. Now you have to live with it. Stay put. Sandra looked at the younger woman. The child who she had been bossing around for 6 hours, and saw no sympathy. She saw no support. She just saw a witness. Sandra Wilkinson, senior attendant, 22 years of service, sank onto the cold metal floor of the aft galley, and for the first time cried tears of genuine, terrifying personal doom. Up in 4D, Lena Brooks had finished her sparkling water. Sarah had brought her a hot towel and a small plate of artisan cheeses. Her daughter was asleep, her small body curled up in the lie-flat bed, the gimbal camera safely stowed in its case. Lena looked out the window at the inky blackness, the first faint hints of dawn, just a pale, bruised purple on the horizon. London was approaching. The story was far from over. It was just beginning. The landing at Heathrow was smooth, a textbook arrival under a grey, drizzling London sky. The fasten seatbelt sign pinged off. But for the crew of Flight 1422, the journey was just entering its most turbulent phase. In the business class cabin, Lena gently woke Maya. "We're here, baby." Sarah, the business class FA, was already there. "Dr. Brooks, a reminder that Mr. Davies will be waiting for you on the jet bridge. Please take your time, there's no rush." "Thank you, Sarah. For everything," Lena said. "It's been our pleasure," Sarah replied, and her eyes said she meant it. Back in the economy cabin, the ding was a starting gun. Passengers popped up grabbing bags, but in the aft galley, it was a death knell. "Global Air Crew, this is the captain," the voice came over the PA. "As previously briefed, all crew will remain on board for a post-flight debrief with the station manager. Do not disembark until all passengers are clear. Thank you for your professionalism." Professionalism. The word hung in the air. Sandra, who had composed herself into a state of numb shock, stood by her station. Her face was pale, her makeup slightly smeared. She looked for the first time in her 22-year career, utterly defeated. The passengers began to file off. Lena and Maya were among the first. As they walked through the forward galley, Mark Jenkins was there. He nodded to them, his face grim. "Dr. Brooks." "Mr. Jenkins," she replied, and walked out onto the jet bridge. A man in a sharp suit with a Global Air name badge stepped forward. "Dr. Brooks, I'm Alan Davies. I'm the station manager here." His British accent was clipped and serious. "On behalf of Global Air, I cannot apologize enough. What you experienced it's a catastrophic failure of our service standards." "Mr. Davies," Lena said, "I appreciate you meeting us. This is my daughter Maya." "Ms. Brooks," Davies said, bending down slightly. "I'm so very sorry. No child should be treated that way." "I just wanted some water," Maya said, her voice small. The simplicity of the statement hit Davies harder than any corporate speak could have. "I know," he said. "Dr. Brooks, we have a car waiting to take you and your daughter to your hotel. We have, of course, comped the entire flight, and we will be depositing 50,000 sky miles into both of your accounts as a preliminary gesture." "I'm not interested in gestures, Mr. Davies," Lena said. "I'm interested in accountability." "As am I," Davies said, his face hardening. "The crew member in question has been grounded. She will not be flying. She is being detained for a formal interview with myself and our corporate HR legal team, which is already on a video call from Atlanta. This will be handled. I give you my word." "Your word is a start," Lena said. "I'll be in touch." "Of course. This way. A representative will take you to your car." As Lena and Maya were escorted away, Davies turned and walked back onto the plane. The last passenger had just stepped off. The cabin was empty, save for the crew. "Mark," Davies said. "Forward galley. Now. Everyone." Mark passed the word. One by one, the crew assembled. Sandra Chloe and the two others from economy. Sarah and her partner from business. They stood in the small space, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Sandra looked at the floor. "Right." Davies began, his voice echoing in the empty cabin. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is the single worst in-flight complaint I've dealt with in my 15-year career. A child was denied water. A passenger was verbally abused. Racially coded language was used. And it was all recorded by the passenger who just so happens to be a senior correspondent for CNN. The business class crew, who had only heard rumors, gasped. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. Mark's report had been detailed. He had not protected Sandra. So, Davies continued, here's what happens now. All of you are going to file a formal written statement, right now, here on the plane. You will detail everything you saw and heard regarding the incident in row 22. He looked at Chloe. Everything. Chloe nodded, her face pale. Ms. Wilkinson, Davies said, and his voice dropped. You will be escorted by me to the station office. Your crew ID is suspended. Your flight privileges are suspended. You are not to contact any other member of this crew. You are not to speak to the press. You are for all intents and purposes on leave, without pay pending termination. Termination. Sandra's head snapped up. You can't. I have a union. I have rights. You have a union, yes, Davies said, and they will be contacted. But I will remind you that gross misconduct and endangering the airline's reputation are typically grounds for immediate dismissal, union or not. And what you did, Ms. Wilkinson, was douse this airline in jet fuel and hand a journalist a match. He turned to the rest of the crew. Write your statements. You'll be on the next bus to the crew hotel. Mark, you're with me. Davies, Mark, and a silent, shaking Sandra walked off the plane. The walk of shame, as crew called it, had never been more appropriate. Sandra, who was used to gliding through Heathrow's Terminal 2 with her head held high, was now being marched like a prisoner to a sterile, windowless office. The interview was brutal. The HR legal representative on the screen from Atlanta was a woman named Ms. Graves, and she did not play. Ms. Wilkinson, do you acknowledge that you called Dr. Brooks hostile? Yes, but she was. Her tone. Please describe her tone. It was, aggressive. Aggressive. Ms. Graves repeated, her voice flat. And then you said, and I'm quoting from Mr. Jenkins's report, you people are all the same. What people were you referring to? Ms. Wilkinson. I meant people who film. People who complain. Sandra was sobbing now. You didn't say complainers. You didn't say filmers. You said you people, to a black woman, who you had just refused to serve. It was a mistake. I was stressed. My back hurts. Your back pain did not cause you to use a racial slur, Ms. Wilkinson. It's not a slur. It is in this context entirely indefensible, and it was all on camera, a camera owned by CNN. Do you understand the catastrophic damage you have done to this brand? Sandra had no answer. The meeting ended. She was told she would be flown back to Atlanta. As a passenger, in economy, in a middle seat. Her crew-issued luggage was confiscated. She was handed her passport and a printed itinerary. As she sat in the public terminal waiting for the flight back, she was just Sandra. Not senior attendant Sandra, just a middle-aged woman in a slightly too tight uniform with smeared makeup, who looked like she'd seen a ghost. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from her sister. Hey, saw you were in London. Bring me back some tea. Sandra looked at the text, and a sound came out of her, a raw, wounded noise, so full of despair that a passing security guard paused to look at her. She had lost her job. She had lost her dignity. She had lost the one thing she had ever been good at. She didn't know it yet, but the hard part hadn't even started. For 3 weeks, the world was silent. Sandra, back in her quiet suburban condo near the Atlanta airport, was suspended in a state of agonizing limbo. Global Air HR had told her not to speak to anyone. The union rep had said it didn't look good and was negotiating her severance. Her crew friends had stopped returning her texts. The silence was its own kind of torture, a prelude to a storm she knew was coming. She spent her days obsessively neurotically checking CNN. Every hour. She watched Anderson Cooper. She watched Wolf Blitzer. She watched their morning show. Nothing. She started to build a fragile, desperate hope. Maybe they're not going to use it. Maybe the woman Dr. Brooks just wanted the upgrade. Maybe she just wanted me fired. She got it. Maybe it's over. On a Tuesday night, that hope was executed. Lena Brooks, it turned out, was a journalist of terrifying integrity. She hadn't wanted a gotcha clip. A viral video of a Karen flight attendant was to her small. It was low-hanging fruit. It generated clicks, but not change. No Lena had been working. The segment that aired was not on a small daytime show. It was a 12-minute prime-time special, anchoring the network's flagship investigative program. The title, Blind Spots Bias at 30,000 Feet. Sandra was watching eating a microwave dinner when the teaser came on. Up next, the anchor said CNN senior correspondent Dr. Lena Brooks on her new investigation into the service industry and the shocking footage filmed by her own daughter that started it all. Sandra's spoon clattered onto the floor. The segment opened. It wasn't an attack. It was a surgical, brilliant piece of journalism. It started with Maya's footage. The shaky cam, the child's eye view, audio, excuse me, may I please have a bottle of water, video. A clear shot of Sandra's face, her smile tight as she looks at the man in 22C. Audio, Sandra. One moment. The footage continued uncut. The service to the man next to her. The cart moving away. The call button. And then the confrontation. Audio, Sandra. The call button is for emergencies only, ma'am. Audio, Lena. You served the man next to us. You skipped my daughter. Audio, Sandra. If you continue to speak to me in this hostile manner. Audio, Sandra. Are you filming me? That is against regulations. The screen went to black. Then it cut to a high-definition studio. Dr. Lena Brooks, looking directly into the camera. Hostile, she said. An interesting word. It's a word that has been used to describe black women for generations. A tool to stance and dismiss us. But what happens when hostile just means asking for a bottle of water? Sandra felt like she was going to be sick. The segment was devastating. Lena didn't just use Maya's video. She had interviewed other black travelers. A businessman who was constantly mistaken for a flight attendant. A woman who was accused of trafficking her own lighter-skinned child. She had aviation sociologists. She had data, bar graphs, statistics on the service gap for minority passengers. She even, to Sandra's horror, had a clip from a former Global Air flight attendant. It was Chloe. Her face was in shadow, her voice digitally altered. It's a toxic culture, Chloe's voiceover said. Seniority means everything. And some of the senior FAs, they're from another time. They're biased. And they're protected. If you cross them, your life is miserable. We all saw what that FA did. We saw her ignore the little girl. We were just too scared to say anything. Global Air's public relations department had clearly been given a heads up. They ran a pre-recorded statement from the CEO, a man named Robert Miller. What Dr. Brooks and her daughter experienced is antithetical to everything Global Air stands for. The employee in question has been terminated, but that is not enough. Today, I am announcing a multi-million-dollar company-wide mandatory diversity, equity, and inclusion training program, which will be designed in consultation with Dr. Brooks herself. Lena had won. It wasn't just a firing. It was a systemic overhaul. The report ended, but the nightmare was just beginning. While the CNN segment was professional, the internet was not. Within an hour, Airplane Sandra was trending on Twitter. Someone had found the flight number. Someone else had found a crew manifest online. A Global Air enthusiast blog had a Meet the Crew post from 2018. With her full name, Sandra Wilkinson, her face the one from the smiling professional blog post, was now side by side with the grainy, angry still frame from Maya's video. The dam of silence broke. Her phone exploded. Texts, voicemails from her sister. "Oh my God, Sandy, is that... You tell me it's not you." From a former colleague. "You've ruined it for all of us. They're making us do an 8-hour sensitivity course. I hope you're happy." From everyone, vile, hateful messages, death threats, doxing. Her address was posted on a Karen subreddit. Her condo association's email was flooded. She was a prisoner in her own home. She unplugged her internet. She turned off her phone. But she couldn't escape. She had to go out for milk. She put on a baseball cap and sunglasses. At the checkout, the young cashier, a high school-aged girl, paused while scanning her milk. The girl squinted. "Hey, do I know you?" Sandra's heart stopped. "No." "Yeah, I do," the girl said, her eyes widening. You're her. You're the airplane lady. The one who wouldn't give the little girl water." Sandra fumbled with her credit card. That's not me." "It totally is," the girl said, her voice rising. Other people in the line turned to look. "My God, I saw that on TikTok. That was you. That was awful." Sandra, her hands shaking, left her groceries on the belt and fled the store. This was her new reality. She wasn't just unemployed. She was unemployable. She was a meme. She was a pariah. She was the face of bias in the skies. The hard karma wasn't just the loss of her job. It was the loss of her anonymity. It was the loss of her identity. She was senior attendant Sandra Wilkinson. Now she was just Airplane Sandra. And Airplane Sandra was the most hated woman in America. 6 months later, Sandra Wilkinson was gone, replaced by Sandy. The condo, the career, the pride, all were lost. She now lived in a small apartment working for $14 an hour at a Capital Cars rental desk at a regional airport. Her colleague Kevin scrolled his phone. Whoa. Remember Airplane Sandra, the racist flight attendant? Hope she's miserable. How hard is it to get someone water right? Sandra's blood ran cold. The phone rang, and she answered on autopilot. Thank you for calling. Capital Cars. This is Sandy. A crisp, professional voice replied. Hello. I need to book an SUV. The name is Dr. Lena Brooks. Sandra's world stopped. Numb, she asked, Do you have the CNN corporate code? The line went silent. Sandra had revealed herself. After a long electric pause, Lena said, I've just found another option, and hung up. Sandra stared at the phone. She had been found. The true karma wasn't the lost job. It was the knowledge that she would forever be the woman who refused a child a glass of water. The phone rang again. She picked it up, a ghost in her new uniform. That's the story. And the fall is always faster than the climb. Sandra learned that day that the cabin of an airplane isn't a kingdom, it's a community, and her assumed power was just a service. She didn't just ignore a passenger, she ignored a person, and she paid the price in front of the entire world. This is a reminder that in our jobs, in our lives, our character is defined not by the big moments, but by the small ones, like the simple human act of giving a thirsty child a bottle of water. If this story made you think, if it made you hold your breath, then please help this channel grow. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to see it, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. We have so many more stories to tell, and you don't want to miss a single one. Thank you for listening.